So that's right. So we're holding in Daf Hey Amid Aleph. So the base of the house. Ani eating his dinner, and the Kohen on his shoulders saying Kriyashma. Daf Gimel is 3 camels in a ruin. One carrying a lion and a dove, one carrying a leonami, and one carrying David Melech. And Daf Dalet is a door spanning from Gula to the Kotel. The David Melech standing on the door in his chassid uniform. At the very bottom of Daf Dalet, not included in our section, we started talking about the mitzvah, as the Gemara called it, of Kriyash Malamita. And we said saying Kriyash Malamita has the benefit of staving off fate, however that works exactly, as well as staving off mazikin. And the proof text about how mazikin stay away from you is when a person learns Torah. So the Gemara went on to say, well, anytime you learn Torah, said Rish Lakish, that keeps Yisurim, all sorts of trouble away. Which Rabbi Yochanan said, that's true, but everyone knows that. Even the pasuk that Rish Lakish wrote from Eov to prove that, it's a pasuk already in Shmos. And Rabbi Yochanan therefore says the relationship between Yisurim, suffering, and Talmud Torah is much more intimate. It's not just another way to fight a Yisurim, but rather whenever a person could learn Torah and doesn't, says Rabbi Yochanan, Yisurim ba and love. To which the Gemara then transitioned ultimately to saying, well, if a person sees Yisurim coming his way, or suffering from Yisurim, maybe learn it, ba and love, Yisurim are coming to him, so then he should be mafash pesh b'maasav, he should examine his ways, and he should figure out what he did wrong and do tshuva. If he can't figure out what to be the tola, what to ascribe his suffering to, then he should assume it's from Bittul Torah, the connection being that Rabbi Yochanan had said, if you're Mevatel Torah, you could study Torah, you don't, the Surah will come your way. So if you have no Avera, so then ascribe it to the fact you didn't learn Torah when you could have. And we said, the Gra said, if you'd learned Torah you should have, you would have known you did wrong. Right? Others say that it's something more systemic, that there's a general connection between the person's relationship with Hashem, that he should learn Torah when he could. If he doesn't, then something is systemically wrong with him, and then there's a midah connected midah in any kind of Yisurim from not learning Torah properly. But then the Gemara said the truth is, it's possible that you actually could look at your life and see you're actually not Mevatel Torah either, and you're still suffering. So if it's not because of some specific hate, and not because of some, you can't ascribe it to Bittul Torah, it must be Yisurim Shel Ahava, it must be suffering because of Hashem's love for you. And that we transition to the topic of Yisurim Shel Ahava, which is where we're now. It all starts in the original Cherepithios, the double-edged sword from Kriyashma. So then we said that Yisurim Shel Ahava is such a concept, the idea being that Hashem is Mochiach, he reproves or Medakeh, crushes the ones who he loves, we took him for that. And we said 2 basic shatim, either the possibility is that a person's reached a level of complacency and Hashem can shake him from his complacency, or certain complacency, or it could be a different thing, a plateau of his avodas Hashem, he's nowhere more to grow, and therefore Hashem gives him something, a challenge to sort of let him bring out some potential within him that hasn't been actualized, and therefore by actualizing that he becomes a greater person. So the Yisurim is a gift, Ahava, to bring out more in the person. That's like one kind of approach. I already said 2 things right away in that mouthful. Either he's become complacent or he's hitched a plateau. But like I said, there are many, many explanations of this. They're all in my mind like variants of 1 or 2 themes. Either that kind of theme, to bring out the potential, or that a person, there's a general rule from Tsara Agra, the more the reward is a function of the person's tsar, usually translated as effort, and properly translated as effort. According to the effort is the reward, but the truth is that tsara, the from tsara agra means according to the tsar, according to the suffering is a reward. Usually the suffering we're talking about is just the effort of putting in what they have to do, but the truth is that the person is performing in his avodah despite the fact he has other suffering, so that makes him more worthy of reward, and therefore some understand the Yisurim Shel Ahava is there to say, to give him more schar, to have him more old baba. In any case, the Gemara said, well, that may be true, but Yisurim Shel Ahava doesn't come in any kind of Yisurim can't be Yisurim Shel Ahava. You should know there are 3 opinions. The first opinion said, well, if it keeps from learning Torah, then it couldn't be Yisurim Shel Ahava. And he, it's not clear who he is, but Chad, one of them, said, Yisurim should call, I'm now on line 35, I'm still reviewing, but it's still one long continuous thought here that builds into where we're at today. He, the Shita, brought line 35, Chadamar Elohen Yisurim Shel Ahava, Kol She'ein Behen Bittul Torah. As long as you don't, it can't be Yisurim Shel Ahava if it inhibits you from learning Torah. Shneimar, as the pasuk says, this pasuk is important, so I'm bringing it out here. Ashrei hagever asher tiasrenu ka. Fortunate is the man who Hashem chides him, something like that, makes him suffer. Now, and he teaches, capital H, Hashem teaches him, the victim of the tochacha, of the chiding, of the chastisement. He Hashem teaches him his Torah. That was the pasuk. So the thought was that if you're not learning Torah from Hashem, that means Hashem, obviously you're not ashrei anything, you're not fortunate nothing, and therefore if you're not fortunate, it's not because Hashem loves you, it's something else. That was one approach. So remember that pasuk because it comes back to us in a minute. But the first approach was anything could be Yisurim Shel Ahava, but not something that stops you from learning Torah, because that Hashem wouldn't do. You see from the pasuk, you're not ashrei. A second approach was no, it's not about Torah, it's about being inhibited from being able to daven. So brought a different pasuk, if you can't daven, and Hashem is ignoring your tefillas, rejecting your tefillas, so it's not because He loves you, it's not chesed of Hashem. And then we had a third approach, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Yochanan said, Elu ve'elu, both could be Yisurim Shel Ahava. In other words, you could be Yisurim Shel Ahava, even though you can't learn, you can't daven. And he brings his own pasuk for that, and he's then forced to address, he then addresses the first pasuk brought about, what about the pasuk that said that the guy who's Hashem learns from Hashem's Torah, he's fortunate. Well, what's with that? So he says, don't read it that way. Read it as not tilam. It's funny the words.
What's the difference between Sarah and the Sigol, whatever? Yeah, on the Dalit.
So tilam denu means you, capital Y, teach him your Torah, and mitorascha tilam denu, you have taught it to us in your Torah. And then colon, like where did we need a place. So the structure is, I'll read inside in a second just to review. But so Rabbi Yochanan says, what it means is you have taught it to us in your Torah that there's such a thing as Yisurim Shel Ahava, that somehow Yisurim can be a benefit to you and come to you if you don't do any sort of avon, then some avera. How do you see that? From a kol v'chomer and shein v'ayin. So the tilamdenu means you taught it to us in your Torah in the parsha of the Eved Kanani going free with shein v'ayin. Ma shein v'ayin, just as a shein v'ayin, if you're the adon, the master, knocks out an eye or even a tooth. It's interesting, by the way, in the Psukim it talks about the eye before the eye before the tooth. But here in the Gemara it says the tooth before the eye. Someone suggests, which sounds very reasonable to me, that if two things, the kol v'chomer is really from the tooth. Losing an eye is horrible. Losing a tooth is nowadays no one wants to lose teeth, but I think in yesteryear everyone didn't lose a tooth. That's how it was, Find me one guy who's 9 years old who didn't lose teeth in his younger years. I think now we're living in a very fancy, high-tech dental age where you get cleaned every 6 months and everything else. But people lost teeth regularly, and it wasn't that big a deal. So the point was, even knocking out a tooth sends the guy free. And the kol v'chomer, I have to use a little poetic translation to make it sound good and make it sensical, is just as if the slave, the non-Jewish slave, is liberated by losing a single tooth, so all the more so when a person has Yisurim, which afflict his entire body, that liberates him. I'll read the words inside for a second, but that's how you have to, I think, read it a little bit poetically. But it's liberating because you're liberated from the Yetzer Hara. I gave examples that when you're in your comfort zone, let's call it, I used different words today than yesterday. So you're hung up in your own self-gratification, and you think, I could never do that because it's I quote unquote could never do that. But then Hashem shows you, oh no, you can do lots of things you don't realize you can do. And that's the Yisurim. You see this, the Yisurim come to you, and you think, and you realize, oh, actually, I could do that. And that's liberating. That's liberating. All of a sudden, you realize your possibilities are much greater, your ability to achieve and to overcome is much greater, and that makes you much less a slave to your Yetzer Hara and your general, all sorts of your shortcomings. So that's liberating. So that was that's the whole thought. I'll say it inside in a second, because that's what we're up to. So the whole thought was, Rabbi Yochanan says, even suffering which makes you can't learn Torah, makes you can't daven, that could still be Yisurim Shel Ahava. And if you want to know, how could it be? So the answer could be, there's a separate, I'm now answering a new thing I didn't say yesterday, that we have a din that whenever a Jew wants to do a mitzvah but he can't, so it's like malel of makasav. It's like inscribe the books, the record books, as if he did it. There's such a principle like that. Says in the solution. So that you would be like if you are serious about learning, but you can't learn because I don't know, you have a migraine, you can't open your eyes. So but since you want to, it's as if you did on some level have a scar. But that would be an answer to the question of how could Hashem loves you so much, why is he making you not be able to learn? He has some other agenda. Or you don't have to comment that. Say sometimes things are more important than learning or dominating. It's this new lesson you have to learn. Whatever it is, the Yochanan says there's such a thing as Yisurim Shel Ahava. It can even mean you can't learn or can't daven. And Mitorascha tilamdenu, you taught it to us in your Torah, from the kol v'chomer of Shem v'ayin. The servants to the human being goes free and liberated by losing a single tooth. So too we, the servants of Hashem, are liberated. All the more so, are liberated if we have suffering that afflicts the entire body. I'll look inside now, and then that's what we're up to. So, look at some line 38. Amar Yochanan, Elu ve'elu, both those things, meaning even if you can't learn or can't daven, still Yisurim Shel Ahava, they could be Yisurim Shel Ahava. Could be, of course. Could be Yisurim Shel Ahava. Maybe just the person didn't take his, if a person doesn't learn Torah today, so 2 days he won't be able to learn. So, for example, it could be that the reason why you can't learn today is because that you weren't serious about your learning, so Hashem took it away from you. But that's not the point. The point is, he says it could be Yisurim Shel Ahava. Shenamar, as the pasuk says, and he'll address this pasuk. Yes, Asher Yav Hashem Yochiach. Whoever Hashem loves, he reproves. Ella. So that's the case. Matam Malomar. What do we do with the pasuk that was brought before? Mutrazcha Talam Danu. You teach your Torah to him, and he's Ashrei. Al Turki Talam Danu. Don't read it as Talam Danu. You teach him. Ella Talam Danu. You taught it to us. Where? By colon. Davarzem Mutrazcha Talam Danu. You taught this to us in our Torah. In your Torah, from the kol v'chomer meshem v'ayin, from the kol v'chomer from tooth and eye. Meshem v'ayin, just as a tooth and an eye, shein echad me'ivarav shel adam, they are just a single limb. I'm unfortunately up and down about the fact that a tooth isn't a limb. If that kind of thing bothers you, then it's a problem.
I don't know.
It's a problem. if that kind of thing bothers you, then you've got to, then I don't mean this visually, then there's a problem to deal with here. Because if we learn all those Bez Hashem in the morning Seder soon enough, there are 248 limbs. I mentioned Ramach Yevar the other day, 248 words in Kriya Shema. So Olos enumerates them, and a limb, an aver needs to have bone and flesh and sinew, like
So an eye isn't either.
So an eye, an eye is considered to be like a chashav to itself, right? But a tooth is nothing. So
tooth is bone and it has.
But it doesn't have flesh. It's
clear. I don't know
it's
about
clear
that.
It's clear that it, and it's explicitly written down in the Rambam Pasuk and other. It's clear that the tooth is not on the list of Ivarim. Okay, if that bothers you, then I don't mean to play down. That shouldn't bother you. I'm just saying if that bothers you, then it's a problem, which I don't know the solution to. I don't have a solution. I'm not pointing it out. Other people point out the problem. I don't have a solution. Other people, I guess, like myself, among them, are like, we don't mean aver in the technical sense. We mean like it's one piece of you. It's one like in the one piece. Just one little. It's just a tooth, and of that already. Like that's how I read it, and I think that's what it was meant. But anyways, some people take it much more care. Yeah.
And he says that in Rashi, he said that we learn it, the Torah. Not like you explained it. That's what Rashi says. That we learn the Torah. If you see Rashi, says I don't know if this Klomar mitorcha anu lamdim oto. We learn it. Not that God learned it to us. I think it's. If I'm right or wrong.
I just think you're reading the Rashi wrong. Well, it's like how I read the Rashi. It reads, there's the previous Rashi higher up in the Amud.
Yeah.
It says, Asher Gever Sher Tiyasurno Kam Mitoras Chatan Deno. You teach him your Torah. Shebeshvili Yisurim Sarch Adam Lavolide Talmud Torah. Like, it's the person learning Torah. I don't translate, it doesn't matter. Here, down below, Mitorascha Talam Denu, Kolomar, the Rashi says, Kolomar means, I'm going to restate that idea in different words, so it should be clear.
Right.
Mitorascha, from your Torah, Anu, Lamdin Oso, or Lamedin Oso, we learn this principle from it, from your Torah. Exactly.
Yeah, we learn from him, not that Kadosh Baruch Hu's on you. You said
Not
before.
teaching.
I don't know, you said something different.
What I said, I'm only saying because of the Rashi, so that's why we're not meeting eye to eye here. In other words, I'm seeing Rashi. Okay, let me take a step back. It's no look. Rashi's got. I'll tell you what's bothering. What's bothering Rashi? If you read the Gemara without Rashi, look at the. I pointed out. If you look on line 39, it says Al Tikri Taf Lamed Mem Dal Nun Vav. Ella, read it Taf Lamed Mem Dal Nun Vav. It's the same word. Like, what are you supposed to do with that? Don't read it as Telam Deno. Read it as Telam Deno. So what? So Rashi said, yes. So Rashi is saying, Kalomar. That means not that you teach your Torah to us, but rather we learn it from your Torah. That's exactly my words before, and now I'm getting that from this Rashi. Rashi is saying, Kalomar. B'Torah Anu Lam Deno. So we learn it from your Torah. Fine. Good. Back to this. Just hold it. You can have it. Give me 1 second. I'll take the questions. If you hold that, as I'm finish this thought here. We're almost at the end here. So just as the Shein and the Ayin are just Echad Me'avar Shaladim, which is one piece of a person, and the Ev Yot Behen Lecheres, and yet the slave is liberated, literally goes free, right? But I'm saying liberated to make the words sound like they twice. But Evid is liberated from losing a single one of them. Yisurim, when it comes to something more systemic, a whole, suffering in general, Shemamarkin called Gufa Shaladim, they purge a whole person's whole person, to something more global. And everything hurts, or everything is difficult, or you can't make a parnasa, so it's afflicting your whole life, occupies your full person. Allah has kama v'kama, all the more so that is liberating of a person. Yes, sorry, not the question.
So, and the pasuk of tefillah, that doesn't just, how does that fit into that thought? We were compelled to answer up for the other one, or is it just that the pasuk of tefillah could also mean that it's a way of just, raising up a person, cleansing them, the same type of terrors?
Okay, so I understand your question. I think that the way this is structured, I hope, this is the way I learned is like this. You're asking a good question. The question is, why is Rabbi Yochanan trying to explain this, the pasuk about... Okay, let's take a step back, actually, hold the whole picture. There are two contentions. We said, it couldn't be, one man says, it can't be, Hashem holds you back from learning Torah and still be Yisurim Shel Ahava, and one said, no, and he brings a pasuk. One says, no, Hashem couldn't hold you back from learning Tefillah, and he brings a pasuk. And Rabbi Yochanan says, no, both could be Yisurim Shel Ahava, and then he brings his own pasuk. And then he says, what about that pasuk by Talmud Torah? Don't read it as Telam Deno, let Telam Deno. So this is the way I learn the Gemara. I may be wrong, and maybe the others learn it differently.
I don't know.
But this is how I'm learning it.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I'm learning it that there's position A, it's not Bittul Torah. Position B, it's not Bittul Tefillah. Rabbi Yochanan says it's not true. That it's not true. Like those proofs aren't really compelling. In other words, it says, what's the connection? The connection says you can't be Ashra, you can't be fortunate if you can't learn Torah. So I guess he would say, yes, you could. You could be Ashra in a different way. Hashem's teaching you a different lesson besides Torah, teaching you how to deal with Yisurim. And the same goes with the pasuk of Tefillah. Baruch Elokim Asher Lo Heiser Tefillasi, like blessed is God didn't turn away my prayer. V'chasdo me'iti, and His kindness is with me. So the thought was, well, if Hashem's really doing chesed, He wouldn't turn away your tefillas. So Rabbi Yochanan probably would say, no. The same answer I gave you, the same kind of answer by Torah, which is, no, we're doing a different chesed with you. The chesed we're giving you today is that you have to deal with Yisurim and not tefillah. And that's it. He's ready to wipe his hands clean of it. And that's what Rabbi Yochanan's answer. Rabbi Yochanan's Amar Rabbi Yochanan, I'm saying it again, line 38. Elu ve'elu Yisurim Shel Ahava. No, they're both Yisurim Shel Ahava. Shenemar, and I'll bring you a proof that Hashem has more than one way to skin the cat of doing kindness and ashrei to you. Because it says, Ki es asher yav Hashem yochiach. Whoever Hashem loves, He reproves. And reproof itself is a form of love. Even if it means you can't learn and you can be ashrei in a different way. Even if it means you can't daven, this is a different kind of chesed. Period. Like Nikudah, and he's ready to walk away from the discussion. He doesn't feel like compelled. But he says, this is how I'm learning it. I'm open to learning it differently, or maybe it's taka wrong. But if I answer like how I answered, if I put a period there and say Nikudah, then your question falls away, right? Then he says, I'm putting words that aren't there. Oh, and by the way, as far as that pasuk about Telam Deno, actually, the shot of that pasuk is, ironically, Telam Deno, you teach us this very principle from that pasuk. And I'll show you from that pasuk that you learn that there's such a thing, not Bittul Torah or Bittul Tefillah, but that there's such a thing as Yisurim Shel Ahava. And when a person goes through Yisurim Shel Ahava, it actually purges him and either makes him like complacency angle or Olam Haba angle. But the point is, you teach us from a Torah that you teach us from your Torah. That pasuk tells you, the Midrasha, that you teach us from your Torah that Yisurim is liberating. And he then says a pasuk. So what I mean by that is, he's not coming to answer one pasuk with other pasuk. He's saying the two pasukim you have, one Ashrei Torah, one Chesed Tefillah. He says no. Another pasuk says, whoever Hashem is Ohev, he's Mochiach, he reproves, and there's other ways that Hashem can show Chesed or be Ashrei. Period. End of discussion. And by the way, that's my words. And by the way, that pasuk about learning Torah actually is a drasha which shows you that there is such a thing as Yisurim Shel Ahava. I'm not answering your kasha. I'm just saying the pasuk tells you in fact that there's such things as Yisurim Shel Ahava and that it's liberating. That's how I learn it. Yeah.
Could you also say that liberation follows Yisurim instead of saying the way you said it, that it was how did you say that?
I think that I'm suggesting.
And the reason I'm saying that is because you look at the Mitzrayim, and then we had the Gula, and you look at winter, and then we have Pesach. I mean, these are examples of one following the other.
Right. So. First of all, it could be you're right. However, at least in my mind, I'm not like insisting this is the only way. But at least I'm just telling you how I'm, like my worldview. I'm painting my worldview. That was why I talked the way I talk. Is that the purpose, like in terms of causality, cause and effect.
Right.
The purpose of suffering is to make the person grow. And therefore, once the person has achieved what he had to achieve, so then it makes sense, but not because of cause and effect, but it makes sense then that it should ease up and get better. Because what's the point? Whatever had to get achieved has been achieved, and therefore, so to speak, spring follows the winter or whatever. Gula follows the Yetzias Mitzrayim. It's not that the job was done. It was you were in Mitzrayim. It was a course of Barzil. It forwarded the Jewish people, and now good. So now that whatever had to happen happened, we're ready to go out. Not that the suffering brings about the Gula per se, directly. But that's just how we talked about logical fallacies. I talked about equivocation. There's another very well-known logical fallacy called, and it's Latin, which is post hoc ergo propter hoc. That means nothing to you, which means, I'll translate very loosely here. If you know what it means, but I'm translating loosely, which means just because A always follows B doesn't mean that B causes A. In other words, every time I go to the mountain at 4 a.m. and I scream, "Sunrise!" and you never believe what happens, within an hour the sun always rises, without fail. But that's true, but what's making the sun rise isn't you screaming at 4 a.m. sunrise, you understand? But it's oftentimes the person, we are used to assuming that what follows was called by what preceded, but it's not always true. I'll give you a silly example. But I'm saying, so yes, redemption always follows suffering, but it may not be that it's not that the redemption directly brings up the suffering brings about the redemption. It's just that the suffering is to achieve something, and once it's been achieved or not, then Hashem says, okay, so now I'm letting off. No need to suffer anymore. That's in my worldview how it sounds.
Where you're saying suffering builds character and that.
That's what I'm saying, right? Suffering builds character, and once your character's been built, then okay, then now Hashem can leave you be, so to speak. Yep. Good. So that was where we're up to yesterday, and now we're in the thick of that. But that's all that with all that in our heads, where we're up to. So now, if you look on line 40, so with Hainu, that's where I'm in the middle of line 40. Hainu, and that this idea of suffering being liberating. That's Hainu Reb Shimon ben Lakish. That's what Reb Shimon ben Lakish meant when he said, "The Amar Reb Shimon ben Lakish, Ne'amar bris b'melach v'ne'amar bris b'Yisurim." The word bris, just the word, it means covenant, of course, but here we're making like a gezerah shava, so we see that there's a connection between salt and suffering because of the word bris. Ne'amar bris b'melach, the word bris shows up with the salt. Tichsiv, as the pasuk says, "V'lo tashbis melach bris," which means it's in the beginning of Vayikra saying whenever you bring korbanos, they have to be salted, and you shouldn't tashbis, you shouldn't discontinue my salt covenant. The point is that salt is somehow a bris. And B'netmar, it also says the word bris by Yisurim, that Yisurim somewhere are bris, there's a suffering bris, to chsiv, at the very end of the Tochacha there in the Chumash Devarim, it says, Ela divrei habris, like all those horrible things that will happen as a response to you treating me not seriously and ignoring me, walking me, and so on, is all this tochacha, all these bad things happening. And that's also ela divrei bris. Those are also for the bris.
Because you violated the bris.
Yeah, indeed. But that's not the that's true, but not the pointer. I think the pointer is simply just saying is a bris is something that's appropriate to salt, and bris is something that's appropriate to suffering. And the reason why we use the same term bris is because there's something similar between salt and suffering. That's where we're headed. So it's like it's a drasha. It's not the drasha is what's the connection or what's the similarity? Ma bris amar b'melech melech mematekes es basar. Just as bris is mentioned when it comes to salt, because that's my word. Because salt mematekes either from the word matok, sweetens, which is a little difficult, or like the marshal, it's commingles. But the point is, salt.
What'd you say?
Commingles, like it mixes with.
Oh, okay.
But either way, the point is that salt certainly prepares the basar. What does it do? The salt draws the blood out of the meat, which makes the meat mutter to eat and edible. It readies the meat. So just as salt is mumatekes as a basar, the salt purges and readies the meat to be eaten and to be kadosh and kosher and so on. Af bris ha'om b'Yisurim, so too bris is mentioned by Yisurim, because Yisurim memarkin kol avonos shel adam. Yisurim, purge a person of all of his sins, and then exactly the lumdus would be either it purges the impurities out of you, and therefore you're ready to Olam Haba, or it sweetens you, as you said, it builds character, it makes you ready to Olam Haba. But either way, there's two possible ways of reading that. But either way, the same general idea. We can then look carefully, but the general idea, the same way salt readies meat for consumption or makes it kadosh and kosher for eating, so and ready and good. So too, Yisurim readies a person either to be kosher, to be ready, to be good, to be eaten, so to speak, to make it Olam Haba, whatever exactly the comparison is. Any role of them are probably true, but the comparison is somehow salt. Salt is like blood. Obviously, blood is obviously meat. The dead meat is inanimate. But if a piece of like the unkoshered steak could speak, it's probably pretty miserable, so to speak. It's like it's being leached. It's blood and leached out. It's like a gruesome, so to speak. He was sort of anthropomorphize it. It's like a gruesome, personal draining process.
Throwing salt on the wound.
But yeah, something like throwing salt in the water. But it's like you're leaching the blood out of me. That's what this, so to speak. So same too. That's Yisurim is like that. Like it's like you're leaching the life out of me with having to deal with this ongoing pain or parnasa or stress or worry. And it's like sucking. But that is mimatekes as a basar, like readies the meat to go to be on the table, raise the person to be going to Olam Haba, so to speak, or purge the meat of its impurity, purge the person of its impurity. Same kind of things. So that is the end of that thought on Yisurim Shel Ahava and its benefits. But a moment ago, I guess it was because so now, so now on the topic of Yisurim Shel Ahava, the two dots. Yeah, let me take questions. So I'm moving on a little bit.
So the bris is basically cutting it off in order to gain something, right?
Oh.
According to Rambam,
I would like to
says
take a
here,
minimalistic approach here, whatever that is. There's more. Minimal meaning maybe there is more than what I'm saying now. But let me just pare it down to be at least as I can say. We're just focusing, let's for argument's sake, say on the word bris. It could have been the word sunshine. Just why is the word? It could have been why is there polar bear mentioned by salt? Why is there polar bear mentioned by the tochacha? Because salt and tochacha are similar. I don't think we're talking. There's more to it than that, because Hashem could have chose polar bear. He didn't chose bris. Bris is indicative of something. But I don't want you to take it a step further and say, oh, bris mila.
No, okay,
bris,
no,
we're not going there.
No.
It's the bris of the salt and the bris that we have with the Shem, which necessitates Yisurim if we don't follow his lead. You'd have to, maybe when you have a bris you can make a real big drasha, but it's not the meaning. That's not the meaning of it anymore. Like more just that Gezeira Shava. Gezeira Shava is So it's just as we see this word used in some paragraph in section A, we have a tradition that links it to some other topic in B in some way, and that's what we're seeing over here.
It's still not teaching us what the kesher is between the Yisurim and the Midah that Hashem is trying to correct. I mean, I'm
No, because it's not necessarily. We're not. The question was, it's not teaching us the connection between the Yisurim and the Midah Hashem is trying to correct. But remember, Yisurim Shel Ahava means the person's already at tzaddik. He's already at tzaddik, and there's nothing to correct per se. But he can benefit from Yisurim. So I'll give you my examples again. I gave you a metaphor of the marathon runner. Like, he's a great, if you run, I give an example of running a marathon in 2.5 hours. I don't know if that means anything to you. That's world class running, right? So nothing wrong with running in 2 hours and 30 minutes a marathon. But if you want to be gold medalist in the Olympics, you're going to have to figure out a way to run faster. So that your technique might be, to go train in Denver where it's a mile high, and therefore you have to rise to a new challenge, which when you come back to the ground level, that was the example I gave yesterday. Yeah. My point was, this is the tzaddik who's running life, in 4-minute miles. He's on the top of his game. Those words I used yesterday. But still, Hashem wants to help him get to be not just
reach his potential.
Yeah, bring out his potential, something like that. So that same idea here. So the Yisurim Shel Ahava is the guy did nothing wrong. It's not that he has bad midos necessarily. It's just that you could always do better, but you need the resistance. You know what I'm saying? If you're maxing out your bench press, more weights put on the side, then they can't go anymore. They get somehow. So Hashem's putting on more weights, so to speak. That's the Yisurim Shel Ahava. So we're not teaching this notion of midah connected midah at all. It's just the opposite. The point was you're mafashpesh and you didn't find anything with midah connected midah. So then you say, oh, it must be bittul Torah, because that's a generic problem. And if it's not bittul Torah, then it must be there's no problem at all. But because Hashem loves you, He's either going to bring out your potential by giving you a new challenge because you're at a plateau, you're complacent, or He's gonna give you more things to overcome, so you have more schar. Not because you deserve it, but because He loves you. And in fact, we saw, I didn't say in the review, but I did say in yesterday's Gemara, that we learned that the pasuk, it has to be like an asham, a korban asham, meaning you have to be tasim the asham al nafsho, you have to want it. And if you don't want it, because it's just extra credit, it's like extra credit, so to speak. If you don't want the extra credit, Hashem won't give it to you. And in fact, in the beginning of next week, you'll see some funny stories. Like so-and-so had Yisurim Shel Ahava, and Rabbi so-and-so went to visit him, and I said, how are you enjoying your Yisurim? And he said, no, lo hen v'lo schar. I'm not liking one bit, and I don't want the schar of it. And he said, okay, so then he healed him of his suffering. Because it's like extra credit, so to speak. And I don't want extra credit, but this is too hard for me. Whatever it is. So the point is, it's not midah connected midah. There's no midah connected midah in Yisurim Shel Ahava.
But only tzaddikim would get that, or any person gets that?
That's an interesting question. Now, so I think it's a machlokas Rashi and Tosfos. Maybe I'll mention it I'll probably get to it tomorrow. I will try to remember to deal with it explicitly. Rashi says black and white. We didn't get there yet, but in a few lines down, Rashi has a comment that says he must have been a tzaddik, and therefore you see he must have from Rabbi Yochanan, and therefore it must be Yisurim Shel Ahava. And Tosfos says, I'm sort of speaking very colloquially. He says, come on. I've seen lots of people who were I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but the Gemara talks about a person who never has children. And then, so there's the sort of getting to the bottom line. So Rashi had said, made a comment about it, suffering wouldn't happen in Yisurim Shel Ahava if a person, a tzaddik like Rabbi Yochanan, for sure would only have Yisurim Shel Ahava. So Tosfos says, what do you mean? You think that only tzaddik, like you've never seen a person that didn't have children, and you didn't ever see a person who was a tzaddik and yet didn't have children? That's how the story comes out there. So you see that not Yisurim Shel Ahava and tzidkus aren't necessarily connected. Anyways, I'll show you something more.
Because there's nothing you can do about that.
Let's discuss it. We'll get there. We'll jump ahead. But the point is, if the question is, does Yisurim Shel Ahava only come to tzaddikim? The answer is, I think that might be a machlokas Rishona. You'll see it. Inexplicit, but we'll see it. Yeah. Good? Yeah.
No, that's how I understood you said it.
I think it's easier to learn like that. I do think so. See, here's the wiggle room. I do think the way you should think about it is, and that's how I'm thinking about it in general, is that Yisurim Shel Ahava only comes to tzaddikim, period. That is how I think it's a reasonable way to think about it. It's just that if you want to be, there's some technicalities that you can point to. It could be that, remember, as I explained about pishpush, when you're looking, you have to find that it has to be nida k'neged nida. So if you have some suffering, and there's no, let's say you're well aware that when you were, you've done some avera, but now you're having a different suffering. And you can't square them away. There's no reason why Hashem gave me this suffering for this avera. So then you would say, oh, must be the Torah. What's the Torah? Oh, maybe this avera takas Yisur Jalava. And maybe you were mitkaper meanwhile for that avera. Then I'll be able to address that. So let's go with Rashi. It's simple. Yes, only tzaddikim when that's straightforward reading.
In your example of the marathon runner, that's a choice. That's a choice. That's not a Yisurim that's put upon.
Oh yes, I know. I was just showing the benefits of you. I'm saying if you, that's not a perfect analogy. I just meant that a person at the top of his game may have no way to. He wants to do better, but he can't because he just can't. He's been the same marathon runner. He was 25 and he ran it in 2 hours 30 minutes. He's been training every day. Now he's 26. Still running in 22 and a half hours. Didn't get any faster because that's it. That's maxed out. He's maxed out in terms of his ability to become faster. So I've suggested, so to speak, metaphorically, well, if he would train in a place where there's less oxygen, his body would be forced to rise up to that new challenge, and when he comes back down to sea level, he'll have more VO2, whatever, and be able to run faster. That was my idea. That the Yisurim Shel Ahava is, the tzaddik is on top of his game, where he's complacent, where he's plateaued, so then he, the old story, just mixing a metaphor, of the guy who Rabbi's in the room in the house and bringing the goat, bringing the chicken, and then when, all of a sudden, when the goat and the chicken, that's the Yisurim. So when the goat and the chicken are out of the house, and the Yisurim are gone, all of a sudden the house is big. Because you're liberated from you realize that you could do it with much less space and so on. So you're liberated with your, I'm tired every morning all of a sudden, and that makes it hard for you to function. But when you could function that, so when that goes away, you realize how much more you could do, or how much more you push yourself, or how much. That's the idea of Yisurim Shel Ahava. It brings out something in you that you didn't know was there, so you got to deal with it. Okay, yeah, cool. So let's go on. It's on topic. Tanya. Speaking of Yisurim having benefits, so Tanya, the Brisa says, we're on line 43, to the box here. Reb Shimon ben Yochai Omer. This is Rashi Bar Yochai. Shalosh matanos tovos nasan l'kadosh baruch hu liyisrael. Hashem gave 3 good presents, matanos tovos, to the Jewish people. V'chulan, and all 3 of them, lo nitnu ela al yidei Yisurim. They're only given through Yisurim, through hardship. Elohen, and these are them: Torah, Eretz Yisrael, and Olam Haba. Those 3 things you only get through Yisurim, through hardship. Torah, Eretz Yisrael, and Olam Haba. End of the Brisa. So, without going on, we're going to prove this in a minute. But the connection here is benefits of Yisurim. You might have a question if you are. You guys learning Beit San Friedman share? You're at Tezline. You got Tezline yet? 16. So you'll see in the next daf, you'll say, oh, Hashem has a Matana Tova, Shabbos. So why is the Shabbos on the list over here? The answer, of course, is that's another Matana Tova that Hashem gave. The answer is that's not through Yisurim. That's not Yisurim. But these come through Yisurim. So the Gemara says, Minayin, how do you see? We're going to now see what's the source that shows you that Torah, Eretz Yisrael, and Olam Haba only come through Yisurim. Torah ben 9, how do you see Torah? Shneimar, because the pasuk says, we've seen this a few times already. Ashrei hagever asher tiyasrenu ka. Fortunate is the man who Hashem tiyasrenu, chastises. Mutras chatalamdenu, and Hashem teaches him, the person who is being chastised, Hashem's Torah. So the point is, you see there that Torah and being chastised go hand in hand. Eretz Yisrael. How do you see that? The Chsiv. Okay, so the first pasuk says, this is the Dvarim, Ki kasher yaser ish es beno, just as a man, chastises his son, Hashem lokecha miyas reka. Hashem chastises you. So that doesn't say anything about Eretz Yisrael. It just says that Hashem, as a father out of love chastises his son, so to Hashem out of love will chastise you. Uksiv basreg, and then the pasuk goes on to say, Ki Hashem lokecha. What's Hashem's agenda? It's Nidecha el Eretz Hatova. Hashem wants to bring you to the good land of Eretz Yisrael. So you see the purpose, that chastisements is a necessary precursor for getting to Eretz Yisrael. So that's the sort of Eretz Yisrael, the Eretz Tova. And Olam Haba, as the Olam Haba needs Yisurim to acquire it, it needs hardship. Tichsiv Kiner Mitzvah Torah or, that's not real Torah Limit, it just means Kiner Mitzvah. The mitzvah is like the physical thing, the candle which burns. The Torah or, and the Torah is the light, that its quality. It doesn't really matter, that's not our point. But then the pasuk says, the derech chaim, and the path to life, and that means like eternal life, meaning olam haba, is tochachos musar, is again like chastisements. Tochacha, means like reproof, and musar, musar. So the point is, it's mias reka or musar. It's all the same idea. I'm translating it as chastisement and making that synonymous with Yisurim. Yeah.
I just have a problem with giving to Israel because we know that the Goyim can also give up Olam Haba. No?
No, they can. I didn't follow the question though.
Why does it say just is? Yeah,
Oh,
saying
I see what you're saying.
Only to Jews.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so that's a good
Right?
point. Okay, so let me say the question. What I think an answer is. The question is, it says three. I'll make the question strong by saying it says Hashem gave 3 special gifts
Israel.
just to the Jews. That's the assumption, because like Shabbos is showing just for Jews, Eretz Yisrael is just for Jews, and Torah is just for Jews. So Olam Haba also presumably just for Jews, and they're only acquired with Yisurim. So the question is, what about non-Jews? Can they get to Olam Haba also? And the Rambam certainly says black and white, yes they can. So I will answer suggesting I can think of a lot of answers, but I'll just say one answer, which is enough, which is perhaps what does a non-Jew have to do to get Olam Haba? It's not Lufum Tzar. I mean, maybe Lufum Tzar Agra, but to get Olam Haba, he sort of just has to like sit on his hands and behave himself. In other words, there's no reason why a non-Jew has to curtail his like tithas in any way. He can like do whatever he wants, essentially, and eat whatever he wants, and sleep whatever he wants, essentially. But like very limited restrictions. It can't be someone else's wife, right? It can't be an animal. But so to speak, yeah, he can't kill and can't take what isn't his. But Olam Haba for us is like a little more complicated than that. In other words, I don't get into this big schmooze. Well, it's true that there's nothing wrong necessarily with, you can eat whatever you want, there's portion and so on. But there's let's just focus on, just to keep it simple, we saw, for example, the issue of Bittul Torah. There's like a definite trade-off. Every minute you're sitting eating chocolate ice cream, you're being Mevatel Torah. Like there's a price to pay for that. It goes like that, right? There's always like, whereas the non-Jew doesn't have that burden. Let's just simplify it with just Talmud Torah and just go through enough. Like the non-Jew there's no crime with sitting around all afternoon, with pina colada, behaving himself, watching the game. Like what's wrong with that? That guy's a Ben Olam Haba. I'm assuming everything else is okay. It doesn't justify, how can you spend a whole Sunday afternoon watching a football game? I was like, well, what else what do you mean? I wasn't chasing anybody, I wasn't hurting anybody. What do you want from me? That's fine. But somehow it's not true by Jew. Like that he has sort of, you hear the forever told, and I don't like it very much at all, metaphor of like, you're on the elevator, if you're not escalating in the wrong direction, as long as you're not climbing, you're going down. I don't really like that. I think it's terrible. But anyways, there's a truth to it, which is like the Jew is expected to be using his time properly, and by wasting time, that's like a criminal offense in its own right. And therefore you have to justify what you're doing. So again, if you have to justify eating an ice cream cone, which you will have to, so then like that means that if you're serious about getting Olam Haba, you got to sometimes say, well, I'm not eating ice cream now because I don't think they do that more important, or because I'm inflation, whatever the story is. And that's like privation, that's like Yisurim, because you want the ice cream cone. Or as I'm sure you know, as I said this very morning, I just said to my wife, I want a day off. I just want a day off. It's like, you can't get it, I'm like, I'm tired, my eyes want to open it. Like, just want, but it doesn't happen. By the Jew, it doesn't happen, because there's Kriya Shema, and there's davening, and there's Seder. Like, it doesn't stop. Whereas, like, if you don't have that burden of being Evan, you're like, so then you can take a day off, and Hashem doesn't mind. You don't have to justify taking a day off, as long as you're behaving yourself without, So I think that's a difference. So Jews are burden on them.
Why don't you like this idea of you going up or down?
Oh, I think it's true. I just don't think.
You think it's true?
why don't I like it? This is not off topic. No, I think it's, well, because if you like think about it, it's not really, you're not really on an escalator going downhill. Like Hashem didn't mess you up. That like you're sinking. Maybe you're forgetting Torah all the time. That is true. But like, I don't know. You're not becoming a worse person by being stagnant. You're just not growing. Like maybe there's punishment for that, but it's not like your morality is degrading by sitting still. So it's not true. It's just in terms of reward and punishments, like had responsibilities, you weren't fulfilling those responsibilities. But it's not that you're going down as a person by doing nothing.
Maybe you are eroding.
You are eroding. If you're not learning and you're not...
It does say about learning, but they say that it's just in general. They say life is like you're being a... But it's not exactly true. That's why I don't really like it. You know, it's not... Okay, I mean, there's a reason why everyone says it, but you do, at least, to answer your question, the reason I don't like it is because I don't think you are... You'll have to... It's extrinsic, meaning... Like you'll be taken to task. How could you sit around and do nothing? And you won't have an answer, so you'll be punished for that. Let's say, but it's not by not doing anything. It didn't make you like. It's not like now you're worse off than you were an hour ago. I don't think it's true. It doesn't ring true to me at all. Okay, if you like it, I mean, everyone says it. So
on the one hand, you're saying it's true. On the other hand, you're saying you don't like it. So it's.
No, it's okay. So okay, it's true that in terms of you're not allowed to be. You have to justify everything you do, and so really, when it boils down to it, everything you do is either a mitzvah or a avera. And that's true because, like, either you could justify your non-action, or you can't. If you can't, then you're you're not fulfilling all the mitzvahs aseh you should be doing. That's a criminal offense. Goyim don't have mitzvahs aseh, by the way, essentially, right? Maybe making courts of the law or whatever. But they don't really have mitzvahs aseh. So like, they're not doing the law and they're free agents. Whereas us, we're burdened with mitzvahs aseh. Talmud Torah is enough to say it all the time. But I just meant, that's extrinsic, meaning like, you could have achieved and you didn't, and like, I'll give you a mashal. I'm in Hashem's employ, which is true. I'm a Nevid. Like Hashem owns me and he can boss me around when he does, and he's the Adon. So like, if I have an employee and he's there to do my tax returns and he's supposed to work 40 hours a week from 9 to 5, and like, and he's a good accountant, and he sits from 10 to 11 and spaces out, and doesn't do my taxes that hour. So like, I have every right to be mad at him and withhold payments from him and punish him. And he's like, he didn't do right by me, and he's going to get it. He should get it. But like, he didn't become a worse accountant, even a little bit worse, by sitting and wasting an hour. He's not a bad accountant because of that. He just didn't do his job. It's extrinsic to who he is. That's, understand? Like, you have no right to sit around and do nothing. And if you do, there are consequences. But it's not indicative of him being some bad accountant, a bad person. He's not becoming a worse accountant. It's not like on the slippery slope. And if you sit like that idle for 3 days, you won't be able to figure out how to do a single spreadsheet anymore. It's not like that. That's why I don't like it. But it's technical. You asked me why I don't like it. I told you why I don't like it. But in general, life is. But it is true. I said as much as your person's expected to be growing all the time, and if he doesn't, there's like the accountant. He was wasting his time, and Hashem will take him to task for that. Just the perfect metaphor is like sliding down. It's like the employee of an hour. That's not being paid. That's not doing an hour work. Yeah.
Before you digress, you were talking about how a goy achieves olam haba. So doesn't his obligation boil down to 7 laws?
Yeah, it's just the 7 mitzvahs in Noach essentially, but 6 of those are no-nos. Right? So there's nothing for him to do. The 7th is to establish courts of law. Like that's not. It comes when every goy every day. It's not like that, right? I mean, it's not. So I should pick out, by the way, that the Rambam makes it clear that any good deed he does will get rewarded. I don't mean to imply that that's not true. I'm just saying that there's no like necessity for Yisurim. Like Gentile can walk up in the morning and say, "Listen, I'm happy to get to Olam Haba. I don't mind if and I'll be alive. My soul will persist for eternity. And that's good enough for me. That's good enough for me. And you know what? I'll be a good person. And if I feel like helping people, I will. And if I feel like watching the football game, I will. And if I feel like sleeping in, I will. Like that's also fine with me. I know that's like fine with Hashem too. It's within his prerogative. So there's no Yisurim necessarily. His ticket to Olam Haba doesn't require stretching himself necessarily. Again, if the guy's a crazy, he can't. He's a kleptomaniac. Then it will talk to be Yisurim for him not to steal. But But your typical normal person, he just goes about his life, and if he's a good person, goes to heaven. There's no Yisurim. But the Jew is like burdened with like mitzvahs all the time, and then that means you gotta get out of bed, and when you're tired and so on, that is a Yisurim.
So what?
Why do they have the suit?
What do they have Yisurim?
Yeah.
Hashem loves them too. He also wants them to go love him.
And
He wants them to
what
love
like
him.
he wants them to live up to.
There's- Well, I don't know. I can't. In principle, yes, for sure. I mean, the answer to the question is yes. Certainly, he wants to live to their potential. That's a non-question. I don't know off the top of my head if such things as Yisurim Ahava exist by non-Jews, because Yisurim aren't just Yisurim Ahava. Yisurim in general are there to have a function. Why do we have Yisurim too? But what this Gemara is saying is the only way to get Torah, Eretz Yisrael, and Olam Haba, on the path you will endure hardship. There's no other way. Nikuda. It's part and parcel. Whereas you ask what about, and it's by non-Jews saying it's not true. A non-Jew can be blessed. He can have a rich dad and have a trust fund and have a blessed life and just be a generic, polite, good citizen and get the Olam Haba. End the story. He hasn't fulfilled the technical commandments, but they're allowing. Just can't steal, and he can't murder, and he can't take someone else's wife, and can't sleep with an animal. Like, okay, so he won't, and he didn't. So good.
He doesn't have
There's
to,
no. His
doesn't
path
have
to
to-
heaven doesn't mandate.
he doesn't mandate
hardship.
other people. He has to make sure that they don't steal.
Doesn't have to.
No.
Doesn't have to stop out of his article. We have mitzvahs of.
He has a base thing.
Arvas. He has one mitzvah of setting up a base din. But it's not. But what does that
On a
mean?
personal
It
mitzvah.
means his society has to set it up.
Yeah.
Or he has to agitate for it, or whatever it is. He has to agitate for social justice. But I don't think that applies to every
So what would
dude sitting in Wichita.
what would the function be for Yisurim for a guy? And I think that's what the question is. Meaning,
I think that's because
they'll get more Olam Haba. I mean,
why not? Makes them better people. And everything else, whatever Yisurim does, Yisurim come in lots of flavors, but why not? Maybe if they're bad people and justice demands that they get punished, then you're assuming they're tzaddikim, don't deserve suffering. But I'm saying, yeah, if there's tzaddikim Muslim, they may also suffer, and maybe because Hashem wants to bring out the best of them. Hashem loves them too. It's not that they're not.
What do we mean here when we say Torah and we're talking about Eretz Yisrael? We're
So
talking about
three things.
Yeah, I know the Olam Haba is Hay Olam Haba. That we don't understand
Yeah,
what it is. Okay, what are we talking about when we're saying
To
Torah?
code a Torah, to have to.
Learning Torah or living a life of Torah?
No, I think it's learning Torah. I think it means like having Torah in your pocket, so to speak. Having learning Torah, but not that. I don't mean the act of learning. I mean having learned. Like Talmud Torah is two separate dinim. There's
The kinyan.
there's the kinyan part. Not there's knowing the Torah and there's the act of learning the Torah. I think we're talking about knowing the Torah. If you want to, there's a din. Every Jew is supposed to know the Torah. Every din in the Torah. We talked when we talked in the introduction. I said 3 parts: Torah, Mikra, Mishnah, and Talmud, and Gemara. And I said the Mikra, Mishnah are finite, and I told the Rabbi and Paskins based on the Gemara conclusion. La'olam Yilmod Torah v'achar Yisa'isha. You have to learn the whole Torah implicitly first before you get married. There's something you have to know.
Nobody. We see you have to have the Yisurim before you learn Torah.
No, not before. No, it's not before. Don't mix up the cause and effect, right? It's that. I mean, the Meforshim speak out. Like the Mishnah and Avos that says, the derech of Torah is pas melach tish, pas melach, bread and salt you will eat, and wine with mesharim, measure water you'll drink. But the point, what the Mishnah is, mastering Torah requires self-sacrifice. It just does. It's a big job. It's a big job, and it's going to cut into your football watching time and your ice cream eating time. It is. It's just a big job, and it's hard. You have to, put effort, and there's an effort to remembering it. And some people this year have made it. Let's say the little thing about these funny simonim. Some people made the effort. That's the sorrow of just committing this memory and getting it. And some people haven't because it's too hard. What's stopping them? It's too hard. That's hard. Hard does also. Getting the Torah requires effort. That's all it means. It means there's no way to get it. There's no such thing as just waking up one morning and just an easy way to get Torah. And making a kinyan Torah requires. Eretz Yisrael also apparently.
Okay.
I mean, it's possible this year. Eretz Yisrael just won't come to
Living
us.
in Eretz
In case you didn't
Yisrael.
notice. What?
Living in Eretz Yisrael.
Well,
Eretz
Eretz Yisrael obviously is owned by the Ummah, the nation.
Right.
So it's interesting, but there's an interesting overlap between the mitzvah of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael, each individual being the Yashav it. But and I think of individual. If you want to have your piece of Eretz Yisrael and live here and be part of it, and it's a collective, enterprise be in Eretz Yisrael, it's gonna, it's resort up and you know what it's like, so that's, it's gonna require Yisurim, that's how it goes. That's part of parcel. Or, I mean, this, or all of the geopolitical shenanigans happening all around, and that's how it goes. Eretz Yisrael always has, always will require us to show we really want it and exert effort for it, and to fight fight whatever obstacles to get it.
Go ahead.
So,
Sure.